Hi, I'm Zach Needles, editor-in-chief of Family Business Magazine. In this interview, I chat with Peter Stenehjem, CEO of First International Bank and Trust, who reflects on leading a fourth-generation family bank founded in 1910. He shares how working across every role in the organization shaped his leadership path and how the business has scaled from under $1 billion to more than $6 billion in assets while remaining tightly held and family-driven. Hi, Peter. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Zach, first of all, thanks for having me. Excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to get into this. It's a really interesting story. And why don't we kind of start with the story of the business? Tell us about how First International Bank and Trust was started and how it's evolved over the past 115 years, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. So I'm a fourth generation community banker. My name is Peter Stenehjem, serve as CEO of First International Bank and Trust. And so a little bit more about FIBT, or First International Bank and Trust. It was founded by my great grandfather, Odin Stenehjem, in 1910. And so that's what makes me fourth generation. And
Yeah.
so fortunately for us, our family homesteaded in Western North Dakota. And so Stenehjem is Norwegian, translates to stone home, but our family members, nine brothers and two sisters, decided to head to West North Dakota. Two of the brothers felt that this small town community needed a bank, and they pulled together the capital to make that happen. And so at the time, it was roughly $15,000 is what it took to start a bank in Arnegard, North Dakota. They had a relative that owned a bunch of hardware stores that helped float them the money, but essentially, they pulled together the capital to start Farmer State Bank of Arnegard at the time in Western North Dakota. And yeah, we remained a small town bank for a period of our history, and I'm happy to get into that more. But very, very honored to continue family banking tradition, especially one that's been around for 115 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about how you personally got involved in the family business and what was your career trajectory leading up to becoming CEO. I love this question because, it's usually a toss up between, oh, I grew up around the business my whole life. I always know I was going to be in it, or I wanted to get as far away from it as possible. And then it kind of sucked me back in. So I don't know where you fall on that trajectory.
I'm a little of both, to be honest.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
obviously having a, bank within the family, that's what a lot of our dinner table discussions were. I started working in the bank in June of 2000, so 26 years ago, roughly. And I'll say why I say I started working there. That's when I first earned $6 an hour to be a teller. And so I
Okay.
started when I was 15 years old as a teller. Prior to that, I think I did a lot of other duties as assigned, but wasn't necessarily collecting a paycheck. But essentially worked in the bank starting off as a teller. I've almost worked in about every area of our institution throughout my career. So started as a teller, worked in the computer room running proof, which banks don't even really talk about what proof is anymore. And then also helped as a loan associate, got in more into our CFO functions and learning more of the general ledger and the balance sheet aspects of our business. And then when I went off to college at the University of North Dakota, I actually thought that I was going to go a different path. I think I was an 18-year-old kid, felt like that I didn't necessarily need to follow in my father's footsteps. And my family tree, so as the banker's son married the doctor's daughter, so we always had this medical history within our family. And so when I first went off to UND, I felt that I was going to go the medical school route. And I thought that, through my freshman year, and I came back to work after my sophomore year, and I started going on customer calls with a lot of our lenders and my dad. And so thought that was awesome. Love
Yeah.
seeing businesses, either buy something or expand. I got to interact with clients. I got to see firsthand, really, helping make dreams come true, essentially. And I went back to college and kind of figured, hey, well, like, what am I doing here? Like, I seem to really like and enjoy this. Do I really want to go sit in school for the next decade of my life when we kind of have this good thing going? Changed my major to banking and financial economics. Graduated from college and then felt that I needed to get some like, commercial lending experience. So I moved to, at the time, Fargo, North Dakota, and kind of just came throughout the ranks. Started as a consumer lender, had a brief stint as a credit analyst, and then got into more of the business banking. So I kind of came up through the traditional bank route, meaning I went business banking and then got into the leadership roles. Eventually
Yeah.
became a market president, started up some new offices and kind of kept expanding some of our footprint and hiring teams. Became chief retail banking officer for a little while, and then eventually ascended into the role of president. And that's when I started getting some executive oversight, and I oversaw all of our non-interest income areas as well. And then, to your point, ultimately, we had a family transition, and I succeeded into the role of chief executive officer January 1 of 2025. So a little over a year and a half ago now.
Awesome. And I smiled at the part where you were talking about going out on customer calls, and that's what kinda got it in your head, like, "Hey, you know what? I really enjoy this." And I just think that's cool, and I think that's something that happens a lot in family businesses when you really actually get to see the people that you impact in the community and the people that you work with. I feel like that is inspiring a lot of times, right? So I
And
think
I'm
that's really
I'm
cool.
still a business banker at heart. Like, I still love to this day going on customer calls. Like, any excuse I have to get out of the office to go do that, whether it's
Yeah.
prospects or calls, like, I love that piece. Outside of the bank, I was a lifeguard too. That was kind of one of the only other jobs I really had outside of our organization. I think it's
Yeah.
mostly because, hey, if the weather looked great, maybe I should go teach some swimming lessons or be a lifeguard. But that just wasn't necessarily a long-term path for me. I think it was maybe just because I grew up watching Baywatch or something.
And so, you just talked about your path, but, like, how many family shareholders are there today across how many generations, and do any of the other folks in the family work in the business?
Yeah, and this is kind of what makes our organization maybe a little bit unique. So, I mean, there's lots of banks out there that have been around for 115, roughly 116 years. What makes us a little bit more unique is probably our size. So we're about 6 billion now in total assets, a little over 6 billion in total assets. Happy to talk more about that growth as well as
Yeah.
we have a cool payments company. But then what makes us unique is just how tightly held we are. So there's only six of us total owners. And so my dad in the role of chairman, my mom, Gretchen, is active with the bank still, does a lot of our public relations, events, as you can imagine. My sister Kira works alongside her. My brother Eric is active in the leadership role with me as well. He's based in our Phoenix metro. We have some offices in Arizona, and Eric is our chief transformation officer. So I work closely with him on a lot of strategic items. And then my youngest sister, Kristen, as I mentioned, we had the family medical tree. My youngest sister, Kristen, are very proud of her. She went the medical route, and so she is a pediatric allergist immunologist. And so
Wow.
she lives in Chicago and then also practices in West North Dakota in Watford City, our hometown. So, and then her husband, Grant, is also a medical doctor. So we kind of still have that banking and that medical tradition going, but there are six of us as owners of FIBT.
Awesome, awesome. And so we hear this, I'm sure you've heard this a lot, that getting beyond the 3rd generation of family business is really, really hard, really, really rare, and you guys just pulled off the 4th generation transition. And so what do you think have been the keys to sustaining, both the family involvement and also the business performance that you were talking about, that growth across generations?
Well, I'll give a lot of kudos to my dad. So, I mean, we in some aspects, my dad almost acts like a G1, where I act like a G2 in some respects. But we are, four generations, throughout the Stenehjem family. But my dad, in reality, is kind of the one who really built it to what it is today. So his relatives kind of encouraged him to come back in the early '80s. My dad had some larger bank experience with one of the money center type banks and went through some leadership roles there. And then he came back to our organization and kind of realized, hey, to keep up with technology, regulation. We need to get some size going here. And so my dad is the one that started a lot of our expansion efforts. Starting in the '80s, going into the '90s, we purchased some failed savings and loan institutions. We continued some organic growth on our own. And so when I came into the bank full time, we were less than $1 billion. And so we hit $1 billion back in 2010. So it took us 100 years to get to the first billion in total assets. Then if you fast forward from 2010 to 2026, we went from 1 billion to over 6 billion now.
Yeah.
So it just kind of shows you how that flywheel effect kind of starts going. But I think a key to our success too is we are tightly held, which helps. Plus we've tried to really maintain a little bit of a work-life balance as much as we can. Granted, when we have, Christmas and Thanksgiving, you can imagine a lot of our dinner table discussions has some work aspects. But
Yeah.
my brother and I at least have some shared principles that, hey, try not to call each other after 5 o'clock with really meaty items unless it's like a urgent matter. Can this
Yeah.
wait till tomorrow? So we just have tried to establish some somewhat ground rules so that when we're with our family, and I have some young kids too, like be present and be present in the moment, because that's also important. And I think that family owned aspect, we've really tried to carry that through into our culture throughout all of our employees as well, is we
Yeah.
really like that family atmosphere, and it's driven by who we are as an organization.